Hi, Oleg. Thank you very much. So let's start. Today, we're going to talk about technical challenges in game development. The first question is, are video games art? Or maybe they are just plain entertainment? I can imagine the crowd starting a heated debate at this moment, but let me tell you something. Video games are software. And as any piece of software, there's a list of technical challenges to overcome during the development. But who am I for talking about this? Well, I'm Javi. I'm from Madrid, Spain. I've been working in games as an engineer for the last 18 years. I worked for companies like Pendulo Studios, King, Outfit 7, Scopely, and now FunPlus. My main domain is mobile gaming. I've mostly used Unity. And after these years, I've worked in almost every aspect of game development. I've gone through the responsibility ladder from intern since I started to technical director more lately. And I can share a few stories about how to do things and plenty of stories about how not to do things. So going back to game development and the technical challenges, today we are going to talk about four stages of game development, which are pretty common in almost every project. And we will see common challenges that we can find in each of these stages. These are very common game development stages, although I'm more inclined to mobile games. But I think that this can apply also to PC, console, to any platform. And I wanted to take out of this talk, of this presentation, rendering challenges, AI, networking, these complex systems that I consider that are more specific to the game that you want to develop. So I wanted to take here more of a general approach, right? So having said that, just start. And where do we start? With the ideation phase. What is this phase about? This is like deciding where you want to travel. You come up with a game idea and start thinking, is it the right idea? Should I invest my time, my people in developing that idea? So the main goal here is to validate that idea, to check if there's water before jumping into the pool. And how do you do that? By prototyping. So you develop a prototype, test it with users. Usually if you fail. I hate this motto, fail fast, fail often, but it cannot be more true. So the idea here, as a business person would say, is to find product market fit. But in games, we say, is really worth to invest in this idea and take it further? Because if not, then what are we doing? As an example of this, in FunPlus Barcelona, in the Barcelona office, we are building a new casual games studio. We want to make the next big hit in casual gaming, which is pretty ambitious. And we could just hire plenty of people and put them to work, but that wouldn't make sense without a clear view or clear vision of what we want to achieve. So right now, what we are doing is to keep a small team, iterate fast, validate a good game idea that we want to invest in, and we will move them to production with it. So the main challenge here is this fast iteration. How do you do that? You want to be fast and start making your game, because in the end, what you want to do is build a game. And at this stage, you don't want to think too much about the future. You just want to see if the game that you're thinking of is fun, is feasible, is something that makes sense to start. So for engineers, this is an advice more for engineers. You have to embrace the prototype mindset. What does this mean? This is like taking the simplest approach and fake as much as possible. If you have seen hyper casual games that are online PvP that you can play without internet connection, this is a good example of this. You just give the impression that is PvP, but it's all fake. So By the end of this stage, and if we have overcome this challenge, we will have validated the idea and gather a lot of information about how to implement or a good understanding of the game that we want to implement. So it's time to move to the next stage, which is the pre-production. This stage is like preparing your trip. You know where do you want to go, but you start preparing and coming up with a plan to how to make it possible. The goal here is, as I said, to have a plan. And for that, the best thing that you can do is gather as much information as possible of what do you want to do, how are you going to do it, with which people, these kind of things. It's true that you won't be able to foresee all problems, but it's worth making some research before going into full production, which is like the most costly part of the game development. As an example of this, back in 2015, I was part of the team that started the pre-production of Bubble Witch 3 at King. And we had a lot of information coming from Bubble Witch 2, which was also developed there in Barcelona, of all the things that were a problem, that mistakes that we didn't want to repeat, some pitfalls that we found. And this was a good input for the pre-production. At that stage, we evaluated several game engines. We defined an architecture that was a major advantage compared to Bubble Witch 2. And when we started the production, we had a very clear view of what we wanted to achieve, which was the problem that we were trying to solve, and we had a very clear view of the problems that we could face. Which challenges can we find in this stage? First of all, is figuring out if we have the right people and the right tools to make the game that we want to develop, to make it happen, right? So one main question here is, do we have the right game engine? There's a lot of controversy lately about Unity. People saying that they're going to move to Godot or build their own engine. I mean, it's perfectly fine. Just consider that this is a very key decision, because if you decide to implement your game engine, you are gonna need to invest a lot of time in that task, and maybe you don't have the exact knowledge that you need for doing that. So apart from knowing which tools do we need for the game, another good question to answer is, do we know how to use those tools? Do we need to build new tools because there is something that is very specific to our game? Do we have the knowledge to build those tools? And do we have the people with that knowledge, or do we hire them? So with all these questions, you will find out that which are all the risks that you might have in terms of, is the team prepared to start with this development? And when you answer this, you come up with a plan for the future. Previously, I mentioned that you did, and in the ideation phase, you don't need to think too much about the future. But in this stage, it's just the opposite. You just have to think ahead. And I like that Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, which is true. So this means that you cannot foresee everything, but the best, as best prepared as you can be for the production, the better. One thing that is very useful, one concept that is very useful during this plan discussion is about consistency, about having one single source of truth. This means that if you don't do this, it will be very difficult to maintain the project in the long run, and many people working in different ways is a recipe for failure. It's going to become a mess sooner or later. A good thing or a good approach to achieve this consistency is defining a good technical architecture, as I mentioned before in the example of Bubble Witch 3. there's a pitfall here. Is please keep it simple. Don't fall into over engineering. But this architecture is a way that we can follow a same approach when facing the problems or when implementing the systems that we will need in the project. So one thing that we can consider here is that making things right should be the easiest path to take. Okay, and as we identify risks in this plan, it's a good idea to have some plan B. So if some assumptions or some systems that you wanted to implement or decided to implement don't go as expected, to at least have a plan as an alternative. Another challenge is finding the limits, technically speaking. Okay. This is in pre-production is the right time to try new stuff. So if you want to implement a new system, to use a new rendering technique, to implement new ideas, is the right time to explore and experiment those ideas at this phase. So it's just about understanding the problem, like I mentioned before. So it's a good practice to take some time, experiment, try to see what are the caveats or the corner cases for your new systems or your new ideas. And in some cases, try to build the worst case scenario, like how many for the target devices that we are aiming, which is the biggest amount of characters that we can place in the scene, which is the farthest distance that we can render the scenario, these kind of things. Okay, so with all this information gathered, if we have overcome these challenges, now we have a clear understanding of the problem and how are we going to tackle it. So it's about time of production. This is the trip itself. This is the biggest part of the development process, and here is where we develop the game. So all before that, we were just preparing for the trip, and now we have to do it. This might include several stops before the final destination, which is the global launch. And the better prepared we start this stage, this production phase, the smoother it will be, because I will tell you that there are it can become a very bumpy road ahead. The first challenge that we can find here is keep moving forward. What do I mean with this? You start working in the game, you're following your plan, you validated your idea, and you found that it was a really promising idea, and you start implementing system features, whatever. So what we want to make sure is that we are really making progress, and if we implement a new feature, we won't be breaking the existing code base. And on the other hand, we also want to ensure that the game is still fun, that with all the features that we are adding, we are not losing the essence or the initial visions that we have. Another thing is that we need to constantly be checking if we are going to hit the deadline. So at some point, we decided that we are going to release by the end of next year, for instance. Is it still possible to do that with all the progress that we are making? Should we reprioritize or the things, the content that we want to do, or are just we delaying problems for our future selves? When I was working in the production of Monopoly Go, the team invested a lot of time in implementing new features, so we could reach to the whole content that we decided that we wanted to release in the global launch. But we were not paying a lot of attention to testing. So when we released the initial technical soft launch, so in a country, just to test that everything was working, everything was not working at all. So the game was pretty broken, and this had an impact in our plans for scaling the game, soft launching, and growing in terms of release countries. So we had to invest a lot of time in stabilizing the game, because in the end, if your players are gonna download the game and it's pretty broken, then it's a position where you don't want to be, right? So lesson learned, we should have been testing the game constantly and ensuring that we were really making progress and not just ticking Jira tickets in our database. Another challenge that we can find is growing teams. So maybe at some point you need more people because you want to go faster or do more things, right? And I'm not talking about adding two new team members in a team of 30 people, which is something that is easy to make. I'm talking about doubling the team size. In this case, you will need a good onboarding, so you ensure that by adding people, you are going faster or doing more things, and not the other way around. That can happen if the onboarding process is not good enough. This might include key team members, and they will get busy onboarding people and not developing more stuff. And you also want that the new team members embrace the team principles, the ways of working. So remember that, but 9 women won't deliver a baby in 1 month. It's not just adding people. It's not a mathematical formula of if I add more people, I will get more output. It's not like that. I've experienced this in a few occasions during the development of Babelwitch 3 and also in the development of Monopoly Go, that we doubled the team size. And it was quite of a challenge to do that, because if you don't have a strong core team that can really take this new challenge of onboarding the people, you might get into trouble, and it's very frustrating for the whole team. So we are getting closer to the launch of our game, which is why we are here, because we want to launch a game. This usually means that we have, at least in mobile game development, there are like intermediate stages like playtest, closed betas, soft launches, technical soft launches, but plenty of things. The most important in the end is global release. And what you want to ensure is that you do that global release with a stable game and with a game that has the quality bar is very high. You don't want to be Cyberpunk 2077 and have a lot of problems during your release with getting bad reviews or maybe losing sales because the game is known as it's very buggy. Also, in case of online games, you want to check your infrastructure. You want to check that your servers are able to support the load of new players. If you remember, when Pokemon Go was globally released, the first days it was barely unplayable because the servers were most of the time down due to the huge load of players. So they were not prepared for that. One thing that you should consider at this point is having monitoring tools like crash report systems or user analytics that can give you some insights if something is going wrong in the live game, right? In the game that you've released. And also consider localization. If you are gonna release in several countries, it's a good practice to just translate and localize the game for every language or as much languages as possible, because this will help you to reach to more players. So after we have released our game, we are really happy and we are done. But what I'm really done is with the travel analogy. I couldn't continue with that at this stage. And it's true that this live operation or after live stage is not relevant for every single game. Back in the old days, you produce the golden masters and then to the factory, and that was it. But nowadays, we have DLCs, we have ports, we have patches, and in mobile gaming, we have the whole paradigm of games as a service. So releasing a game is just the beginning. So which are the challenges at this stage? Keep the business going. So imagine that you've released your game, you're making a lot of money, sun is shining. The last thing that you want to do is stop that. You want to keep your players engaged, and for that, you want to give them more content to produce more levels, more skins, more whatever, right? But adding more content to a live game is always a risk. If you break something, then the money will stop coming in, right? So you have to balance adding more content and also being sure that you're not going to break the game. You need the confidence to publish new updates without breaking stuff, right? So remember the monitoring tools here are a very useful asset to have. And also to have systems that ensure that whenever we are publishing new content, we are not creating crashes or instability in the game. Another thing that may happen over time is that the team morale goes down or some team members get bored or something. So for keeping the team morale high, it's good that you keep the team transparent, that the people can see their impact in the game and in the users, because over time probably people will forget about this. And it's a good idea to translate some ownership of the game, so people feels that the game is theirs and they have opportunities to grow with this adding more features or maintaining the game. Okay. And then the last technical challenge that I came up for this talk is the technical debt. I love this topic. This is like a never-ending fight against evil. Over time, the game specs change, and sometimes we just make small changes. We don't reevaluate if our original premise when developing a specific system is still valid, or is still true. So our systems are going to be changing constantly because we want to adapt to our players, to new content, to whatever. But are they really prepared to do that? So in the long run, we probably are going to stack technical debt. We are going to stack some in commodities that in the long run will make this is like I like the health analogy, right? If you don't care your health, in the end you will get sick, you will have pains. This is the same. If you don't pay attention to your code base and don't pay that technical debt, it's gonna be very difficult to maintain the game in the long run, and this also could have an impact in the team morale, as I mentioned before. And one message that I want to transmit here is that it is not just making things pretty code-wise, that I have a very clean code base. It's just ensuring that we ensure the stability and predictability of our releases, and also that our team has some quality of life. That is not, we are not just releasing new updates based on the people's effort and suffering, you know. So we are reaching to the end of this talk. We've gone through 4 different stages of game development. We've seen 9 common challenges, and some takeaways apart from this that I wanted to mention is that each of these stages has a different mindset. You need to adapt to each of these stages because it will require a different mindset, okay? The technology, and I as an engineer, I have to think a lot about this, is technology is here to serve the game needs and not the other way around. So in the end, what we are trying to do is build a game, and the means to do that is by implementing or using a game engine, but everything should be at the service of the game. And I have to warn you, there will be unforeseen problems. It's true that you won't be able to foresee everything, that you won't have an answer for everything, but as the better prepared you are, the easier your life will be. And last but not least, enjoy the journey. This is a very creative industry with very creative people. It's super fun to work in games. At least this is my experience. And don't forget it. Just enjoy each of these stages, adapt to them, and have fun. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Javier, for the presentation. Question: are there any affordable and easy to use data tracking services / programs you can recommend for smaller studios and teams to track games progress post-release?
Okay, so data tracking services, programs. I mean, the first that comes to mind, but I don't know exactly the cost or the prices for it, is Unity itself. I remember using some other. I mean, the thing is that in the companies that I work for the last years are big companies, and they have like their own solutions for that. So I don't really know if there's like a very cheap one that you could use. In the end, the good thing about these services is that they charge you for use. So if you don't have a very big audience or very high demand of usage, the price should be cheaper, I guess, or in some cases even free. I think that Unity One is free at up to a certain level of usage.
What is this stage you enjoy the most and find most fulfilling, and one you find more challenging?
If I would have to choose, right now I'm in the middle of the ideation phase, and it's super fun. I'm enjoying it a lot. And I guess that the most challenging normally is the production phase, is where the big things happen, where the hot stuff is, and depending on your role, probably the live operation can be quite challenging because of maintaining the team morale and also being in a project for maybe a long time. Handling this is quite difficult too.
Thank you very much. We still have maybe one question, one last question. Anybody from the audience? Please shoot. Okay, then thank you very much, Javier. Thank you very, very much. If the question comes, I'll ask you to maybe stay here another few minutes in the backstage. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.